Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode for my plot summary series. This week I'm going to be showing you Sherlock. It is a really great show, it was a whole lot of fun to watch and it is full of suspense. But before I talk about the show, I would just like to welcome everyone to the channel. If you're new, basically what I try to do is give a basic plot of particular shows without spoiling too much of it for you. So if you are new, please subscribe, like, and leave any comments below. So there isn't too much to explain for the origins of the show. Most people have heard of Sherlock Holmes, which is based on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes detective stories, but Sherlock is a crime drama television series created by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss. 13 episodes have been produced, with three-part series airing from 2010 to 2017, and a special episode that aired on the 1st of January in 2016. Throughout the airing of this series, Sherlock has received several awards, such as Emmys, BAFTAs, and a Golden Globe, with Emmys being won for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Miniseries, Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Miniseries, and Outstanding Writing for a Miniseries. 2 years later, the show won an Emmy for an Outstanding Television Movie, and it is also honored with a Peabody Award. Okay, now I'm going to talk about a general plot for the entire series. Sherlock depicts a consulting detective named Sherlock Holmes solving various mysteries in modern-day London. Holmes is assisted by his flatmate and friend, Dr. John Watson, who has returned from military service in Afghanistan. Although the police and several others were suspicious of Holmes at first, through his power of deduction and his exceptional intellect, he was able to win them over. Part of Sherlock's success comes from Dr. Watson's blog documenting their adventures, so Holmes becomes a reluctant celebrity with the press reporting on his cases and personal life. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some of the cast members of the show. The protagonist of this story is Sherlock Holmes, and he's played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Writers for the show became interested in casting Cumberbatch as the title character after watching his performance in the 2007 film Atonement. The actor was cast after reading the script for the creative team. Sherlock is described as a dynamic superhero in a modern world, an arrogant genius driven by a desire to prove himself more clever than the perpetrator, the police, and everyone else. The next character and fellow protagonist of the story I'm going to cover is Dr. John Watson, played by Martin Freeman. In an interview with The Observer, co-creator Mark Gatiss says that he experienced some difficulty finding the right actor to play Watson compared to the title character. He was quoted saying that once Benedict was there, it was really just making sure that they got the right chemistry for John Watson, and as soon as Martin Freeman came into the room, they saw that those two could work together. The writers said that Freeman's casting developed the way in which Cumberbatch played Holmes, saying that Freeman found the right tone for the character. It is said that Freeman is the sort of opposite for Benedict in everything except the amount of talent. Freeman describes his character as being a moral compass for Sherlock because he does not always consider the morality and ethics of his actions. The next character that I want to talk about is Detective Inspector Greg Lestrade. The character is played by Rupert Graves. The writers of Sherlock noted that Lestrade does not appear often in the stories and is quite inconsistently portrayed in them, so they decided to go with the version that appeared in The Adventure of the Six Napoleons. The personality from this book is a man who is frustrated by Holmes but admires him, and whom Holmes considers as the best person at Scotland Yard. The next character that I'm going to cover is the villain of the story and is known as Jim Moriarty. Andrew Scott plays the role of Moriarty and made his first appearance in the episode The Great Game. The writers wanted to stray from the typical role of Moriarty where he's a dull and posh villain, and so they thought of someone who would be genuinely frightening and an absolute psycho. Some other characters that I wanted to talk about are Una Stubbs as Miss Hudson, Amanda Abington as Mary Morstan, and co-creator Mark Gatiss as Mycroft Holmes. I find each of these characters important to the story, but I don't want to spoil anything, so all I'm going to state is their names. So what I'm going to do now is stop the video and kind of give you a spoilers warning. Although I will not be going in depth with each of the plots because I'm still trying not to spoil everything for you, I will be talking about each series, and so this is my time to let everyone know from here on out I will be talking about each specific series, so if you don't want to know anything about any of it, you can just stop the video here. Okay, with all that being said, I'm going to jump right into Series 1. The first series of Sherlock was released throughout 2010, and the first episode, A Study in Pink, was loosely based upon the first Sherlock Holmes novel, A Study in Scarlet. The story depicts the introduction of Sherlock to John, and them entering a flat share at Baker Street in London, and their investigation into a series of deaths initially believed to be suicides. Mycroft Holmes, Sherlock's older brother, also appears for the first time. The second episode, The Blind Banker, depicts Holmes being hired by an old university acquaintance to investigate a mysterious break-in at a bank in the City of London. The first series concluded with The Great Game, which introduces the character and arch-enemy of Holmes, James Moriarty. In this episode, Moriarty sets deadlines for Holmes to solve a series of apparently unrelated cases. Moving on to Series 2, the first episode, entitled A Scandal in Belgravia, is loosely based on A Scandal in Bohemia. The episode depicts Holmes' quest to retrieve compromising photos of a minor's royal held in the camera phone of Irene Adler, a ruthless and brilliant dominatrix who also trades in classified information extracted from her rich and powerful clients. Mark Gatiss wrote The Hounds of Baskerville, which investigates the strange activities at a military base. Aware that The Hound of Baskerville, first published in 1902, was one of the most famous of Conan Doyle's original stories, Gatiss felt a greater responsibility to include familiar elements of the story than he does when adapting the lesser-known stories. The second series concluded with the Reichenbach Fall. The episode follows Moriarty's plot to discredit and kill Sherlock Holmes, concluding with a cliffhanger. The episode was inspired by Conan Doyle's story The Final Problem, in which Holmes and Moriarty are presumed to have fallen to their deaths from a waterfall in Switzerland. Next, I'm going to talk about a Christmas mini-episode that aired in 2013. BBC premiered a 7-minute Sherlock mini-episode over the 2013 Christmas period entitled Many Happy Returns. The basic idea for this episode is that Sherlock has been gone for 2 years, but someone isn't quite convinced that he's dead. But from that mini-episode, we get the first episode of Series 3, The Empty Hearse. This episode is inspired by The Adventure of the Empty House, written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The episode follows Sherlock Holmes' return to London and his reunion with Watson, and their subsequent solving of an underground terrorist network. In the next episode, The Sign of 3, Watson and Mary get married. The episode takes place during the wedding reception, and the story is told through flashbacks. The episode title is inspired by The Sign of the Four. The final episode, His Last Vow, is based on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Adventure of Charles Augustus Milverton. This case leads Sherlock into conflict with Charles Augustus Magnuson, a terrifying villain who was introduced as an unnamed villain in episode 1. On July 2nd of 2014, it was announced that there would be a special episode broadcast between the third and fourth series. The writers confirmed that this episode would be set in Victorian London, saying that it was a special and its own separate thing. So I know that I said I would talk about each of these series a little in depth, but for this final and fourth series, I really didn't want to spoil anything at all, so all I'm going to say is that it premiered on January of 2017, and the titles are called The Six Thatchers, The Lying Detective, and The Final Problem. Each of these episodes are amazing in their own right, and I really don't want to give away anything that happens for any of them. Alright, that's everything that I wanted to cover for this plot summary of Sherlock. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I absolutely love this show, and so hopefully this will get you to watch it. It is on Netflix. If you are new to the channel and like this episode, please feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and check out some of my other plot summaries. That's all I have for you today, so I'll see you next week. Bye.